What is up, guys? Welcome back to the Kick-Ass Podcast. I hope you are having a fantastic week. As always, today we are here for the official prediction show for AEW All Out, scheduled for this Sunday, Labor Day weekend 2022, in no other place than Chicago, Illinois, at the Now Arena. It has been a crazy journey to get to the pay-per-view, but we have finally made it here, guys, and we will definitely touch on what happened on Dynamite this week and look forward to the pay-per-view that will be this Sunday. But, man, guys, and of course we're just going to get right into it, and we'll kind of blend back and forth between Dynamite and the actual card itself here. I don't know, guys. The vibe going into last night and as I was watching the show just felt weird to me. Not necessarily bad, just off. And I think it's kind of felt that way to me for the past couple weeks. I've been super excited, going into each show and everything like that, and still been invested. But there's just something is for me personally again, and I'd love to know if you guys feel the same way. Again, something just feels kind of off to me, and I'm hoping after All Out and watching the pay-per-view itself and Dynamite the following week that things are going to kind of just shake loose and just we're going to get over this kind of rough patch, right, and this rough hump with the injuries and everything like that. But I don't know, because I feel like I was kind of saying the same thing going into the Forbidden Door pay-per-view, that we just need to get past that, and then we'll focus more on AEW storylines and things of that nature. And again, look, I know we have had injuries, so there's only so much you can do, right? And you plan and things happen at the last minute or what have you. Things happen backstage, so shit happens, right? And you can't fault someone for that, or any or company for that matter, for things that are beyond their control in that regard. But for me, and I like to view it as constructive criticism. And again, me personally, and believe me if you want, but I really enjoy constructive criticism, right? And I'm not gonna sit here and like fake in front and be like, oh, it doesn't like get to me, right? Like, it's all about the delivery, right? And I think for me, I would go towards AEW with maybe constructive criticism from love, for me personally. So like, if I say anything maybe a little negative or not all rainbows and sunshines for AEW in today's show in particular, it's just at a place of love, and out of fairness too, because I mean, we all as a fan base shit on WWE and other companies when things don't make sense, or they don't book stories, or just even if shit does go according to plan and we as a fan just don't agree with it, or we would have wanted something different to happen. I think we all kind of fantasy book, right? And that's the fun of wrestling, and that's why for me personally, again, like when I sit here and I go over, oh, well, I don't understand when they did this, or they maybe should have done this, or that didn't make sense, like, it's coming out of a place of love for me, you know what I mean, guys? So again, but like I said earlier, I love constructive criticism, I love feedback. So if you guys have any of that for me, I'm all about it. Feel free to send it directly to me on Twitter at ASHMANNS, the show's Twitter page at @kickashpodcast_. But yeah, so like I said, get all that bullshit out of the way and we'll get into specifics into the actual prediction show here. But coming off of last night's Dynamite, like I was saying, the vibe does feel kind of off. Again, I'm not excited for All Out, but and I think maybe even like a weird, if you think about it, going back to after Revolution and kind of going into the Double or Nothing pay-per-view, I think that's kind of when things kind of maybe took a little detour for AEW, and I think that may have been like, if we could like pinpoint on like a map or something, like when things kind of went awry or just kind of off track maybe. And again, not in a bad way, but just like not according to plan, which again is shit happens. But yeah, kind of stemming from there and it's just kind of compiling up to this point. But for me personally, for instance, like if you guys have listened to the past shows, for instance, like I wasn't really a fan of the build or lack thereof for the championship match. Going into having Jon Moxley as the interim heavyweight champion, and then of course, obviously knowing that CM Punk is our actual champion, whenever he was set to return, we were going to get that match against the two guys. The thing that I was looking forward to the most was the story. The match itself is obviously going to be kick-ass, right? Or so we thought. But the story was what I was looking forward to the most. Like, and not even necessarily specifically name dropping things from WWE or anything like that, but just you have a long history together. They have gone through like so much, and there's just I don't know, there's just I feel like so much they could have pulled off of that they didn't, and they're two very similar but very different individuals. So I just and don't get me wrong, we did get two kick-ass promo segments from them, between what was it, the week prior to last week and then last night as well on Dynamite. So again, we did get good promo segments from them, obviously, so I'm not going to discredit that at all or ignore that happened, but I just feel like we could have got a lot more. But with that being said, I'll save that for the main event itself and start with the pre-show, which they're not really calling it pre-show. Normally they call it like is it the kickoff show? Or no, the buy-in, right? Obviously, the buy-in. But this year they switched it up to the 0 Hour moniker. That is a name that had been used back in Ring of Honor as their pre-show. And I believe Tony Khan even referenced that he was going to try to use it going forward. I don't know if he's going to save it just for like the bigger shows like All Out or whatnot. But in side note, I'd love for someone to ask Tony Khan like what he views as like, and I wouldn't want him to take it as like in a negative way or like a comparison, but like, because I was gonna say like what in his vision would be like his or AEW's WrestleMania, like, right, and just like their biggest show of the year, not any type of comparison at all, other than the simple fact of, or what's their Super Bowl, if you don't even want to compare it to WWE, right? What's their Super Bowl of the year? What is their main, and what in his eyes and in his mind is their biggest show of the year? Is it Double or Nothing? Is it All Out? Out of curiosity, I'd love to know. And if he's already answered that, if anyone knows, please hit me up. Just very, very curious. But with the 0 Hour card, we have Eddie Kingston versus Tomohiro Ishii. This match obviously is a revision from the originally scheduled match between Kingston and Guevara that we had. I believe that was actually the first match that was officially announced for All Out a few weeks ago. I'm sure everyone that's listening to this podcast has heard by now the backstage fallout between Kingston and Guevara, but long story short, there was a promo that Sammy had cut. I believe it was at the the Quake by the Lake Dynamite that they had a couple weeks ago, maybe 3-ish weeks ago now, if I'm not mistaken. Sammy Guevara had, I think, called Eddie Kingston a fat piece of shit or something like that. I know he called him fat, and I'm pretty certain he called him a piece of shit. I just know the word fat was in there. And that really pissed Eddie Kingston off. Apparently that either it wasn't agreed upon or it was something that, that's what it was. It was something that wasn't agreed upon. And there was just some miscommunication. Long story short there, guys, there was just some miscommunication on what Eddie Kingston didn't want specifically mentioned in the promo, because his side of it was, well, if you're going to lose, then why would you call me a fat piece of shit if you're just going to be losing to a fat piece of shit? And again, if that's not exactly what Sammy called him, I apologize, and I'm absolutely not calling Eddie Kingston that, but I something in with the word fat, I'm almost 100% certain now, was in that. So yeah, and apparently that once Sammy got backstage, there was either an attempted pie face or an actual pie face from Kingston to Sammy. So yeah, I mean, I think they've actually spoken since then, and cooler heads have prevailed, and Kingston owned up to it and admitted he had fault in it, and went to Twitter. So if you're interested in getting the nitty gritty, I'm sure you can still find it. But Kingston is a man's man, like when he fucks up, like he owns up to it, you know what I mean? Like I just, how could you not respect Eddie Kingston, right? But long story short, guys, this match is going to be really fun, and I'm happy that Eddie still found a way to make it on the card, even if it's the quote unquote kickoff show. I'm happy Eddie will be able to kind of start things off, and I'm sure this will be the first match to actually start the whole night off. So that being said, I'm going with Eddie Kingston getting the victory here. The next matchup that we have listed on the card is Hook versus Cool Hand Angelo Parker for the FTW Championship. To be honest with you, I feel like I know I missed something. It was probably on a Rampage. It's Hook. I'm excited to see Hook. It'll be cool to see Hook. This match probably isn't going to go long, although I hope it does, because this is Angelo Parker, right? I'm not going to say he's like Kenny Omega, for goodness sakes, but like this isn't just like a random like jobber or no name opponent for Hook. This is someone with name value now at this point, right? Especially the AEW. I'll give credit, where credit's due. They've really built up Angelo Parker and Matt Menard. So shout out to them for doing that. And I was one of those people that was like, why did they sign them when they first did? And what was that, maybe a year ago now? Something to that effect or close to it. But they proved me wrong, man. They're some entertaining dudes. So all that out of the way, and that being said, I'm still keeping the championship on Hook here. I don't see why you would take it off of Hook, and no offense to Parker, but I feel like this match was just an excuse to get both guys on the card again, and mainly Hook. But yeah, it'll probably be fun, and it is what it is. But I'm that's what I was saying earlier. I feel like there was like a promo segment or something that they did back. Oh, that's what it was on Rampage, and it was just so bizarre too. Like Hook was standing backstage. I think it was with Tony Schiavone or some backstage announcer. I'm pretty certain it was Tony, and he was asked something about Angelo Parker, and he said, yup, and that was that. I don't even remember the exact question. And then he walked off, and literally 30 seconds later, not even 30 seconds maybe, like, you can even pull it up, guys, I'm not even exaggerating. Like, the second Hook gets off of our camera scene, the Angelo Parker and Matt Menard walk in from the left side. So it's like, because the whole thing was like they were looking to confront him, like, where's Hook? Come on. But I'm pretty certain that's the only thing that stands out to me about it. I'm sure I missed something else, but yeah, it is what it is. But I hope we get a chance to see more actual wrestling moves from Hook. So yeah, I think it'll be fun regardless. Moving on, the next match, and it looks like the final match that we have listed on the 0 hour buy-in show, the 0 hour pre-card show. Like, not pre-card show, pre-show. I don't just call it on the 0 hour show. I don't know. But nonetheless, it is Pac versus Kip Sabian for the All Atlantic Championship. Almost forgot this thing existed. No offense. But I think Pac has been overseas in like the UK and things, and in places over there and defending the championship. So, hey, cool, and I guess it makes sense. But Kip Sabian, guys, has been the gentleman in the box, in the cardboard box, sitting ringside or just randomly at shows if you've been to an AEW event. Really cool dude, too, if you have been at an event and you've seen him. Takes pictures, like he actually like sets up somewhere, like normally not too far from like a merch stand or something, and takes pictures, and like he actually had like pictures of himself pre-printed and signed it, and I forget, he wrote a message on the pictures as he was signed, and obviously signed it, but he was a really cool dude. He didn't say anything because that was the whole point, like he wasn't speaking, but he was a really cool dude, and it was just a really cool vibe. So shout out to Kip Sabian for being cool. But man, I think this is going to be a good match, and I think it's going to be fun to see Kip Sabian in the ring again. It's been forever, and I think the last thing that we saw from Sabian from AEW was when Miro destroyed him. Back in the arcade days of Miro, if that tells you how long it's been. Unless I'm, again, forgetting something, but I'm pretty certain that's when it was. So it'd be cool to see him back in the flux of things. And I love his hair. I love his look. I love the color of his hair. So I love the visual of him. So shout out to him. But moving on to the official card now, guys, we have a pretty stacked... How many matches is that? Whatever, maybe 9-ish matches? I didn't count. But to start off, we have Christian Cage versus Jungle Boy, and again, this is no particular order. This has been one of the matches on the card that has been the longest build-wise, and I think this has been very good. I fucking love this version of Christian Cage. He is that smug, just prick that you just can't stand. It's like, it's that guy that you just can't stand, and it's kind of like a natural and a common... just, I don't even know, just like a common thing that like everyone hates this guy or like just despises this guy, or this guy gets on everyone's nerves, and it's just like a general consensus, right? And like everyone's just okay with it. But yeah, like, and that's what makes it so great. And I will eat crow when I need to eat crow. Back when Christian Cage debuted in AEW, on one of the mini episodes I did with Mimi Burris over at the WD podcast, and it's very sad Mimi is no longer doing the AEW review show over there. It's very, very sad. But so shout out to Mimi if you're listening, and thank you for everything and for having me on your show so many times. We'll have to get you on here. But I know at some point I vented to her and I was like, and mainly because they overhyped it too, right? That was prior to the CM Punks and Adam Cole's and all those guys being in AEW. So Tony Khan at the time was hyping Christian as like the biggest signing ever and a future main eventer and just like it was going to be this huge game changer, right? And again, no disrespect to Christian because he is a lot of people have said he's one of the greatest like wrestling minds and he is such a solid worker like in ways that we as fans don't appreciate and can't see like the little intricacies that we don't pick up yet because we don't obviously have like that specific trained eye. And I believe it, and I see it, and I was always a Hardy Boys fan, right? They were my number one, but Edge and Christian were my number two, and maybe not necessarily number two, but they were right up there. So yeah, and again, I'm not gonna sit here and bullshit like I was always the biggest Christian fan, but yeah, like, especially when he was a babyface in WWE, like, that just wasn't the thing. Like, heel version of Christian is where it's at, and I love that it's just been amped up in AEW times 10. But all that bullshit, again, out of the way, I love the character progression and the growth that we've seen from Jungle Boy in this story. I love the fact that we're kind of, in my eyes, transitioning from the Jungle Boy version of this character and into the Jack Perry, like, man version of this character. And again, it's kind of weird to, like, specify that. But even just in, like, the character sense, I mean, like, because I don't remember if I vocalized it on the show, but I remember thinking some time ago, like, how long are we gonna go on with calling Jungle Boy Jungle Boy? And I guess, you can make the argument, oh, well, the Hardy Boys were called the Hardy Boys well into their 30s and 40s. And yeah, true. But I think that's kind of different. And they did end up dropping the boys and just being called the Hardys. So there were transitions there. But I was kind of wondering, like, how long are we going to call him Jungle Boy? And I think JR has obviously been the one who have been calling him Jack Perry for months now on commentary and kind of introducing that name to us as fans. So I think that was cool. And a lot of fans were saying that it was JR screwing up and just not calling him by the proper name. But whatever, like, who cares, right? Whether that's true or not. The fact is, I think we've seen a lot of progression and a lot of growth from Jungle Boy. All that being said, I think the Luchasaurus factor is going to play out here. I don't, and I know I said this with Mimi, I don't buy Luchasaurus as Jungle Boy's friend right now. Like, I don't buy it. I don't buy the whole thing with Christian was just, like, a ploy against Christian. I don't buy it. He's still been in that dark gear. I don't know. There's something about it that doesn't sit well with me. So I think Luchasaurus is going to screw Jungle Boy here. I think Luchasaurus is going to be the one to cause Jungle Boy the victory. Christian Cage is going to get the W. Not that he needs it, but I think it's going to be done this way to set up the future feud for Luchasaurus and Jungle Boy. And I think this is going to be the story that pushes him fully into becoming Jack Perry. I think between all the low and just despicable things that Christian Cage said to him, and then the hurt and the betrayal of his best friend, I think that's just going to snap him out of this, like, Tarzan boy character and into this next version of his career, and truly embrace the pillar version of himself. So my official pick here, and I could be way off, is Luchasaurus. Is Christian Cage winning here due to blind side interference from Luchasaurus. However that plays out, and I guess you could hold off. You could have Jungle Boy celebrate after the victory with Luchasaurus in the ring, and then he attack him from behind, and then kind of go from there. I guess you could do that to get the victory here. So I'm not going to be surprised, but for me, I think the sting and the hurt and the betrayal will be even harder for Jungle Boy Jack Perry to accept and just kind of push him over the edge in that regard. So I'm going with Christian Cage on this one, even though it's probably the minority pick. Next up, we have Ricky Starks versus Powerhouse Hobbs. This one, I think, is going to be a good and fun match. I think both of these guys are going to go out there with something to prove. I fucking love Ricky Starks, man. I have loved him since the first time I saw him in AEW. I'm so happy he's here and he's getting the opportunity on the mic, because this dude is just, you just feel him, man. Like, you just feel, you get goosebumps watching him on the mic. There's just, again, something about him that you believe him and you feel for him and you want him to succeed. So I'm very happy. As much as he is a good and entertaining heel, I think he is going to thrive as a babyface as long as he gets the opportunity and the time to. So as much as I would like Hobbs to win, and I want Hobbs to win because I think Hobbs is just going to be a beast going forward, and I think he can just run, no pun intended, rampage through the roster and pretty much get, like, maybe even if it's just like 4 or 5 just dominant victories under his belt and then go straight for Wardlow. I think that could be a kick-ass match, and I could see him dethroning Wardlow for the TNT Championship and kind of taking over and going from there. So that's why I don't feel like a loss here would be too detrimental for Hobbs. So I'm going to go with Ricky here. I think Ricky needs the W here a little bit more than Hobbs. Although if Hobbs pulls out the victory, I would not be complaining at all. But I hope these two get time. I don't want to see like a squash either way or anything like that, or any type of interference for this match. I want these two guys to get the time they deserve, and we get a good quality match out of it. So my official pick is going to be Ricky Starks after a long, hard-fought victory. Next up, we have the Tag Team Championship match. Swerve in Our Glory versus The Acclaimed. Of course, Swerve in Our Glory. I was going to say Swerve in Your Glory. Swerve in Our Glory is our tag team champions, which you wouldn't know if you've been watching Dynamite. I don't know, guys. For a company that was so focused and so set on spotlighting tag team wrestling, and tag team wrestling was going to main event a pay-per-view and all this stuff, I don't know what's going on. And I think maybe I do know what's going on. The whole introduction of the trios titles, which I get, you have a lot of your main tag teams that were involved in that tournament, but this one kind of bothers me because, first of all, it came out of nowhere. Second of all, it's obvious that you're just literally throwing both of these teams on there because you really had no other opponents for your tag team champions, because, like I said, all the other credible tag teams are in the trios tournament, or they were in the tournament. And the Acclaimed, they were just feuding with the Gun Club. Granted, they won, but it's like, how do you go from feuding with the Gun Club to having a tag team championship match on All Out? And yes, obviously I know that the build with them, they obviously have turned to the babyface side. They're gaining momentum, support, all that good stuff. I love the Acclaimed. I got to meet the Acclaimed at the Revolution Fan Fest, and they were a good fucking time. Max Caster is super entertaining. They're a dope tag team, and I 100% guarantee that they are going to be tag team champions, just not this weekend, not this year. And I think I'm not going to say it's unfair to them, but I wish they weren't the ones in this match right now, as crazy as that is, because I want to see not necessarily a slow burn for them, but just like a slow-ish like burn for them, kind of continue to simmer and play out for the next few weeks into the next pay-per-view that we have, which I believe will be Full Gear in November. So I just think that, and then you have them face off against whoever the tag team champs are, or maybe at that point we'll finally get FTR. I don't know. But to me, it's just, this was just rushed, and I feel like we're not really giving the Acclaim the due diligence, and Swerve in Our Glory, they deserve better too. Like, they deserved a better story going into this, and not just running out there to save the Acclaimed and them saying that they were going to issue a challenge to the Acclaimed. Like, and it didn't make sense. And that brings me to my next gripe, and something that I was going to save for the main event. But that's the whole ranking system, and what the fuck we're doing with this at this point. And it just, again, if you listen to me with Mimi on the WD podcast, you already know. So I hate to bring this back up, but it makes no sense to me. And it's something that could be really cool and really fun and just something that actually helps more than hinders. And we either go from not acknowledging it at all and it making no sense to acknowledging it and then setting up a match directly from it. So I need the rankings to either matter and to actually determine match outcomes, or I need to just be like more of a suggestive thing and more of like a power rankings type thing, right? That's something that you see on the AEW website, and just more of like an opinion piece from whatever journalist they have or whatever, like, I don't know, but the rankings aren't doing it for me because the rankings are doing shit on TV. So I hate to be negative about it, guys. And, like, this is one of those things that I was referencing earlier, but correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't want to say common sense would tell you, but wouldn't it make sense if you're the champions, right? And something happens to your number one contender or something happens to your championship match and you don't have an opponent, oh no, what do? Oh, I go to the next ranked competitor in the power rankings. Like, I don't get it. Like, that's why I said I was gonna wait to bring this up earlier because of the whole open contract thing, but it just, I don't know. Either they mean something and they do determine who your number one contender is and your next challenger for your champion is, or they don't. And one of my other gripes about it has always been, when do these things actually determine who's the next contender, right? Like, how long should someone be the number one contender? For instance, we have FTR, who have been the number one contenders in the tag team rankings for I don't even know how many weeks now, probably going on months, and they have yet to had a title shot. And out of nowhere, we have Swerve in Our Glory pretty much saying they didn't have any competitors, so they offered and gave a title shot to the Acclaim. So it's like, and I think the Acclaim at that point were ranked, 3, 4, 5? Like, I don't get it. I don't get it. Like, I just either make it make sense or be done with it. And I'm not gonna, if they, starting next Wednesday, if they were to come back out and never mention the rankings, take it off of the display for the wrestlers when they come out, and not even that, like, I like having their match counts, like their win-loss record. I love seeing that. Like, that's cool. Keep that. And again, I'm not even shitting on the ranking system. I'm just shitting on the fact that you don't use them, and it doesn't make sense, and there's no structure to it. There's no, like, you have no idea when your number one contender is actually, like, going to be able to challenge for that title. So it just doesn't make sense to me. Like, I don't know. And the majority of the wins that you're getting aren't even on Dynamite. They're on AEW Dark or Elevation or, I don't know. Again, I like the idea and I think it could work and I think it could be fun, but it's just like, what are we doing? So that rant out of the way. Long story short, no way Swerve and Our Glory are losing the tag titles here. I could see, as I say, no way. Tony Khan could be on some other shit and be like, you know what, screw it, let's do a surprise switch up here, but I don't think we are, just because the tag titles have already changed so frequently in the past year. So I think they're going to stay on Swerve and Our Glory for at least the foreseeable future until we get kind of past the trios tournament and get all of our tag teams kind of shaken back out of the trios area and kind of go from there. So with that being said, yeah, Swerve and Our Glory are retaining. Next up, guys, we have the TBS champion Jade Cargill defending against Athena. Pretty certain before Chris Statlander got injured, she was going to be the one facing off against Jade here, but Athena has taken her spot, which is cool. I'm happy Athena is getting her moment to shine here. She's getting her time on TV, whatever time that is, and her time, more importantly, on the pay-per-view. That being said, though, I believe Jade, is at 36-0 right now. I don't see her losing to Athena, so sorry, Athena. And I think since you're so close, you might as well go 4-0 and see how long you can drag that out and maybe play that up and kind of go from there and see where we're at that point. But yeah, I think Cargill retains here. I don't think we're going to get any type of funny business here, but I think it's going to be a good competitive match. I think it's going to go 6, 7, 8, maybe 10 minutes. I think 10 minutes may be pushing it, but Well, maybe not. I think with Athena, I think with Athena being involved, you could go 10 minutes. Because I don't want to see her squash. I could see you could maybe like, and again, not that that would probably even necessarily be a squash. But I want to see a better choice of words is competitive. I want to see a competitive match between the two. And Jade's kind of like Hook, and more advanced than Hook at this point. But I just in the sense that like I want to see her get time in the ring. Like I want to be able to enjoy her more in the ring. I want to be able to connect more with her as a character in the ring. And obviously she's got the look, right? That even a blind person can see that, like and get that vibe. Like you can be in the same room with her and get that vibe that this woman is the real deal. So personally, me, like I would love to see her spotlighted more. So yeah, I think long story short, again, Jade is taking the W, gonna move on to 37-0, and we'll kind of move on from there. Next up on the card, we have Lionheart, sticking with that, Chris Jericho versus American Dragon, Bryan Danielson. Again, this is, of course, stemming from Daniel Garcia and his torn heart right now. It should have been Daniel Garcia, custody of Daniel Garcia in a pole match. They missed an opening here. But I mean, guys, this match is going to speak for itself, and no sense even like needing to speculate on how the quality of the match. And I think, especially with the route that Jericho went with bringing up how a lot of people call Bryan Danielson the best in the world, or the best professional wrestler. I don't know if he necessarily said the best, like best in the world, like because that's obviously Punk's thing. But obviously in referencing that he's the best wrestler, so some form of variation or combination of those words in there. And I love how Danielson went back with, like, comparing, like, or asking Jericho, like, what would Owen Hart think? What would Stu Hart think? And things like that. So, just, I love that segment that these two guys shared 2 weeks ago now at this point. But I'm really torn on this match. It was harder when I actually looked at it and thought about it before I jumped on here. It's actually kind of difficult because I think it really depends on, and the main factor here is what they want to do with Daniel Garcia going forward. I think this is one of the hot points that they can't afford to miss, or maybe not afford to miss, but they shouldn't miss, and they shouldn't be willing to miss with Daniel Garcia. I think the reaction and the love and the response that he's gotten from the fans chanting "You're a wrestler" pretty much every time he comes out now, I think you need to capitalize on that and you need to run with it. Part of me would love to see him just be his own man, though. Like, part of me would love to see Bryan Danielson win the match and essentially win custody over Daniel Garcia, and that would allow us to all think that he's going to join the Blackpool Combat Club. But I would love to see him say something to the effect of, you know what, Daniel, you know what, Bryan, I love you, I respect you, you don't have to say I love you, I respect you, I've looked up to you, blah, 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 but I kind of want to go on my own. I want to figure out this journey like you did on your own and shit like that. So I think that could be really cool, and I think that could be a big moment, and he can even say, like, I'd love to learn from you, but as far as being in the club, like, I don't want to be in the club, but I'd love to, like, learn, like, specifically from you. And then, as I was saying that, it could be construed as, like, oh, well, you want to learn from, like, why wouldn't you want to learn from William Regal and Claudio and Moxley, right? But there's just something about, like, Garcia being his own man to me just kind of, like, really was intriguing, but I don't think we're going to go that route. I think Bryan is going to win custody of Garcia, and he's going to be in the Combat Club going forward. Next matchup we have is FTR and Wardlow facing off against Jay Lethal and the Motor City Machine Guns. This is another match that has pretty much no build going into it. There's a lot of nitpicking I can do, but I'm happy, again, FTR is actually getting on the pay-per-view, and we're going to actually see them in the match. I am a big Motor City Machine Gun fan from back in the day. They were just like, so fucking captivating to me, and back in the early TNA days. So I just always have a special place in my heart for them as a tag team. So I'm very happy that they're going to be on TV, or pay-per-view rather. So this is going to be a good match. And again, I'm not shitting on the match itself, but I just wish they had more going into it. And I get the whole Jay Lethal and Sanjay Dutt with and setting up saying, like, I get that that story has been kind of building for a few weeks now, maybe even longer than that, but it just feels kind of forced, you know. And Wardlow is the TNT champion, but he isn't defending the title on like what may be the biggest show of the year, quote unquote. You know what I mean? So it's just weird, man. And again, like that's why I just feel like there's just too much going on, and there's too many titles, there's too much going on, and there's just not enough focus on maybe the right things. And that's that. And again, that's bound to happen. That's nothing AEW specific. That's nothing like this shit happens. This is the same shit that we were saying about WWE. This is the same shit that we've said multiple times, right? Like it's not just specific to one place. So again, like I said earlier, it's coming from a place of love, guys. With that being said, I think Wardlow and FTR get the victory here. Jay Lethal does not need it. Love you, Motor City Machine Guns, but you guys don't really need it either. FTR and Wardlow absolutely do. So, giving it to them, guys, and moving on. After that, on the lineup, we have Toni Storm versus Shida versus Britt Baker versus Jamie Hayter for the interim AEW Women's Championship. Thunder Rosa got about a minute last week, I think it was, to announced backstage that she has a injury and she will be, I forget the exact wording that she used, but essentially she needs to take a step back and will not be able to wrestle for an undisclosed amount of time for right now. We learned later on, I think from Busted Open, I think that was the interview she did, that it's a back injury and it's pretty severe and she's at the point where she can't really walk and she's just in pain, guys. Like, and that's the thing, like, she doesn't need to explain to us, like, and again, I think we should get an idea of what the injury is, unless it is super, like, personal. But if it's, for instance, with Punk, right, like, to me, it was still bonkers that they were so secretive on his injury. It's like, it's a fucking foot injury, dude. Like, you broke your foot. Like, who cares? Like, why are you being so secretive of it? Like, that was just so perplexing to me. Like, I don't know, like, why we're so secretive of it. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, last night, he tells us, like, the whole 16 screws and the plates and all this shit. And it's like, bro, like, where was this, like, 3 weeks ago, right? Like, it just, like, I don't know. Like, again, like, it's just kind of strange to me. But, yeah, so Thunder Rosa got her about 30, 45 seconds, less than a minute, to let us know she's injured. So we are having another interim championship matchup. Look, apparently the backstage heat between Dr. Britt Baker and Thunder Rosa is legit. I am not going to get into that bullshit. At least right here, right now, I think it's, if the stuff that we're hearing is true, and I definitely don't believe probably 80% of it, but if the simple fact that I don't know, I'm never going to get into it, but if there is that bad of dissension and they are having difficulty being in the same room and shit like that, then that's where someone higher up needs to step in and be like, yo, like, we all need to sit down as adults, talk this shit out, and see what we need to do and go for it. And again, if all that is true and to be believed, but to me, I don't really care. It's none of my business. Look, I obviously have a podcast, right? So we love talking about juicy shit, but stuff like that is just kind of, it gets to a point where it's like, look, if they're having personal, like, disputes and personal issues, it gets to a different point, right? Like, the things that they were saying, the reports coming out about Thunder Rosa being terrified of Jamie Hayter and getting her ass kicked backstage, and pretty much like a Mean Girls type setup, that's so wrong on so many levels, and almost not embarrassing for Thunder Rosa, because it shouldn't be, but in the sense that, like, you guys are trying to embarrass her, like, the media, and I don't like that, you know what I mean? Like, I don't, some shit, like, even if you hear it, I don't think that you need to report it, even though that, as I say that, I may sound as a hypocrite since I'm sitting here talking about it, but I mean, at this point, it's, like, everywhere, but, like, my point is, we just don't need to know all that shit, and that specifically, since I did, like, actually bring that part up, like, I don't believe that at all. Like, I don't believe Thunder Rosa, she's a fucking MMA fighter. This woman is a trained fighter. She is not scared of some chicks backstage, okay? And no discredit to Jamie Hayter, the doctor, any of them backstage. Like, we all can stand up for ourselves, right? And each one of us have different fighting and experience levels than others. which is why I don't think Thunder Rosa was cowering away, and that's why I think this is just petty bullshit. And if that's the case, then or if just for the simple fact of that even kind of getting out, like that shit needs to be nipped in the bud. You know what I mean? Like that's just it's not fun. It takes the fun out of wrestling, and no one in Thunder Rosa's position should have to go on any type of social media platform or interview and address bullshit like that, and it's just I don't know, completely unnecessary, and again takes the fun and the focus away from wrestling, you know, and for what we're all really here for. But with all that, again, bullshit backstory out of the way, I think this match is going to be a good match. I think the tag team match that the four ladies had on Dynamite this week was good, and I think it was a good sign for the match to come. I do think we're getting Toni Storm as our victor here. Part of me wouldn't be surprised if you put it back on Dr. Britt Baker as like the safe bet, but I think you need to pull the trigger here, put it on Toni Storm, and go full-fledged with her. I think the energy that she'd bring to the title and the freshness in the meantime will be good and something much needed for the women's division, and I think that'll build for the return of Thunder Rosa, and they can obviously go back to their history and what Toni Storm has done in the meantime and kind of go from there. Oh, and by the way, you know, like, you can't draw and become a main event player and a superstar if you don't get the exposure to do so. So I'm just going to kind of put that out there. But moving on, we have the casino ladder match. We finally got the participants announced. We will have Wheeler Yuta facing off against Claudio versus Dante Martin versus Rey Fenix versus Rush versus Penta versus Andrade versus, of course, a Joker entrant. Yeah, not much to say about this match, guys. I think this is obviously going to be fun. It's really going to be determined on who the Joker is. Normally it's a new signee, right? I can't think of anyone who's like dangling out there right now that would be like a big splash. So I could see it being someone that they want to kind of spotlight that they maybe already have, like a Blake Christian. He's so good, like All Heart, I think is his moniker, or something to that effect. But I saw him at the dark tapings that they had a couple weeks ago, and obviously I've seen him in previous matches. And dude is just really good, really solid. So I think and I don't see him winning here, but I think he'd be a fun participant. You could bring back someone that we haven't seen on TV in a while. Maybe like I don't know, like a Scorpio Sky if he isn't injured. I'm not really sure what he's doing. Like an Ethan Page. What happened with American Top Team? They just straight disappeared from TV. I just thought of them now. Gosh, there's just so many people. That's why I could sit here for another 45 minutes and speculate on that. So, that being said, I'm going to go with the Joker here. I'm going to go with them. I don't know who it's going to be. I mean, I guess you could go crazy and have MJF, and that could be maybe his big way back in, because you're obviously fighting for a contract. And if Tony Khan, you know, the last time, and I guess playing devil's advocate, if I was going to try to make a case for it, you could say MJF needed a contract. The last time we saw MJF, he pretty much told Tony Khan to fuck off and to fire him. Maybe he did. Maybe that's why Tony Khan hasn't been wanting to talk about it in any type of media scrums he's been doing. What better way for MJF to come back and solidify his roster spot than win a match that has a contract included, right? So, and again, obviously I know the contract itself isn't for a job, right? But that obviously, it's kind of like, it was the thing that WWE did, gosh, probably 15-ish years ago now, 10, 15-ish years ago now. Randy Orton, when he was feuding and he was newly in his Viper role and being this despicable piece of shit guy, and feuding with Triple H and the McMahon family, and being just real personal, like that was like around the time when he invaded Triple H's house, I think it was. Or was it Vince? Yeah, I'm pretty certain it was Triple H's house. But there was around that time he won the Royal Rumble. I'm pretty certain it was around that time frame. Whatever. He won the Royal Rumble, but they, and the McMahons were pissed off and they wanted to fire him, but they couldn't because he won the Royal Rumble contract. So I could see them maybe going this route, you know, if you want to completely not have MJF involved in anything else, and more on that later. You can I guess, bring it back here. But to me, it would be really, really underwhelming. Just trying to play devil's advocate here. But I mean, you could, MJF could definitely pull this off, and I think, again, it's not the most exciting, but it would make sense, right? And because all of us are wondering, like, how do you get him back? This would make sense, and like why Tony Khan would be so eager and or so willing to bring it back. Maybe and again, I mean, there's so many logic gaps, right? Like, how the hell would MJF come in? Like, why would his entrance music play if it does? Like, all this shit. So, not banking on that, but I just want to throw that out there. But I am solidly, I guess, yeah. I'll place my money on the Joker here. So yeah. Next matchup we have is Miro, Sting, and Darby Allin versus the House of Black. It's criminal the House of Black are not in the trios tournament, even though I get it. I hate to say it, but I think both teams, well, not both, I don't know. I don't know. I don't think Sting and Darby Allin need the victory here, but I think Miro does. But I think House of Black need it more than any of them. Lord. I don't know, guys. I guess I'm just going to go... They're probably going to go Miro, Sting, and Darby Allin here to keep everyone happy, fans at least. And then we'll have House of Black come on next week, cut some promo, and then we'll move on from there. But I'm so bummed, man. Like, I just wish they were getting more steam, more victories, just more attention. But it is what it is. Next matchup we have is the AEW Trios Championship Tournament Finals. That is the Elite versus the victor of the match that we will get on Rampage, which I have not obviously seen since I am recording prior to Rampage. And I did not look at spoilers because I just don't want to. But that being said, so it'll either be Best Friends or Dark Order. 10 has been negative. Is it negative 10? No, it's just 10. It's -1. Preston Vance 10 is injured. Apparently he injured his knee storyline wise. So he, I believe, most likely will be being replaced by Hangman Adam Page, which will set up your Elite versus Dark Order with Hangman Page matchup. And I think obviously the big story here is Hangman versus his friends, right? And to see who's going to win. I think the Elite are going to pull it out all together, though. I think the whole tournament was designed for them. The whole waiting until now, until Kenny was ready to come back, is obviously for them. I guess you could go with the surprise upset here and have Dark Order and Hangman Page, but I don't see it. There's no reason to kind of pull the wool or anything like that here. So my official pick is the Elite, even though we don't officially know who their opponents are, but I think it's kind of obvious at this point. And finally, guys, we have made it to the main event. Thank you guys so much for hanging around. We officially have our main event for All Out and know what that is going to be. It is the AEW Undisputed World Champion Jon Moxley facing off against your hometown hero CM Punk. They did a bizarre angle on Wednesday, which I was not much of a fan of. That's a little unnecessary. I'm not going to say I wasn't a fan of, but to me it was just unnecessary. And again, I kind of already went on my diatribe about the build going into it, so I won't rehash that shit here. But yeah, man, the whole play out from Dynamite. So we opened Dynamite with Moxley coming in the ring. He got a very good reaction in Chicago, a stronger one than I was kind of expecting. So just proves that Mox is the real deal, and Mox is a true superstar, and I don't mean that in a WWE way, just, dude's the real deal, and deserves to be champion, and if it was anyone but Mox, or Punk rather, I would 100% have him retain here, and like 100% in the fact that I wouldn't be uncertain, be like a no-brainer almost, like one of those things. He came out and essentially had a open contract, and said that as of right now, of course last night, he didn't have an opponent for All Out, and he was open to anyone. He will fight anyone. He will reopen, or he believes the Forbidden Door is still open. Called out anyone from New Japan, asked Rocky if he had anyone else available. Left the open contract in the ring, went back out to the fans, pretty certain, and left. Maybe like a minute or so later, we saw Ace Steel come from the back pick up the contract, kind of look a little disheveled from it, or perplexed rather, and then went to the back. First of all, the fact that no other wrestler would even make an attempt to run to the ring to grab that contract is just fucking bizarre to me when you're literally having a ladder match to face off for the championship or for a championship. And it's just, again, guys, like, it's unnecessary. Like, you had a perfect layup, like, going just straight to the pay-per-view starting from 3 weeks ago when Punk came back. Like, and it's just, this is like WWE shit. It's just like unnecessary, and that's why it's frustrating because like it was just so easy. Like you didn't even need to do anything, man. But yeah. So later on we had, and no sign of Punk, no nothing. Later on we had, and I could be mistaken, but I'm not sure if the commentating team mentioned that if Punk was there or not. Maybe we should have just assumed, but the way he was selling his ankle from last week, like dude, we didn't even know if dude could walk. So yeah, next time we saw Punk, he came out to the ring and he was almost looked completely heartbroken, looked like he was gonna cry. He was very emotional. Said that when he returned last year, it's because he loved professional wrestling, but wrestling doesn't always love you back, or doesn't love you back, or something to that effect. And that he came back also for the fans and the love of the fans and your predictable stuff, right? But it was going in the route that he was going to either retire or he's questioning if he's still got it. Complete 180 of the ending of last week. Last week, we were made to believe that he lost because his foot was fucked up. His other foot was fucked up, and that it felt the exact same as his other foot felt when he shattered it and needed 16 screws and 2 plates, which is more times than the other guy has been screwed, apparently, the guy in the crowd. So there's that. Another fun fact for you. But it just doesn't make sense. Like, he's just, all of a sudden, he's just completely depressed. He's not, and it's not that he's depressed because his other foot is broken. I could totally get that, right? You being depressed because now you have yet another injury. You're going to be out for another X amount of months or another time frame, or it's uncertain. Totally would get that. It's believable, right? Like, I'd be depressed too if you just went X amount of months, came back to the champion, lost your title in record time, and now you can't fight for who, like, God knows how long because your other foot's fucked, you know? So, yeah, completely understandable. But that wasn't the route that they were going. They were going in, he doesn't think, like, just questioning his heart. And that prompted Ace Steel to come out. He confirmed who he was to the fans, in case you didn't know. Said that he was CM Punk's trainer, all this stuff. It pretty much gave, like, a brief rundown. Which is cool, you know. I'm happy that they actually finally explained somebody, or, like, someone that we haven't seen on TV, or gave us some backstory, right? So, long story short, guys, you know, Steel essentially reminded Punk of who he was, fired Punk up, had the contract in his hand, pretty much was like, you're gonna sign this type shit. Like, you came back for a reason, this isn't you, this isn't what we talked about backstage, I don't know what happened from backstage to now, but this isn't you. And then next thing we know, Punk is fired up. Punk is the man, Punk is going through the fans. We had a fan offering their newborn infant to Punk. So it was full circle, right? The circle of life, guys. It was complete at that very moment. And I fucking loved that. I loved the raw emotion that we got from Punk and the second part of that promo. I love him going into the fans. I love the sacrificing of the infant to Punk. I loved it all. I loved it all, guys. That's why I'm so frustrated, because all the other shit didn't need to happen. It's like, it's WWE, right? It's like the match, like, we'll be watching a pay-per-view and prior to this new regime, right? We'll be watching a pay-per-view or a specific match and be like, man, like, this match is just fucking fantastic. Like, it's frustrating because you know if these guys just had just 5% more wiggle room character-wise, like, it would be 10, 15, 20, 50 times better. And it's the same thing here. Like, less was more with this. Just let these guys go out there, have fucking promo battles, do the same thing, you know, have it get to the point where they can't be in the same arena. Ban one week, ban the other week if you have to. Like, I know that's not that exciting because you want to see them week to week, or ban them on different parts of the arena. I don't know, like, just do something, you know? I don't know. And I say I like to get that out of the way because, again, this is another situation where the match is going to be fire. I think the way that we got there was a little convoluted, to say the least, but again, it's going to be, and look, I say all this, and All Out is going to be a fun pay-per-view. We're going to watch the pay-per-view, and it's going to be I'm not going to call it a banger or anything like that until we actually watch it, but I'm sure it's going to be another fucking kick-ass show. It's going to be another exciting show, and I'm sure Sunday when I wake up and and we realize tonight's the night for the pay-per-view, we're going to be pumped, right? So, and that's just the frustrating part, because you want to have this feeling for weeks carrying over and just having it climax on Sunday, right? So that's just my frustrations and kind of just my vantage point and where I'm coming from with it. All that bullshit and side rants out of the way. If you listen to the PW Torch, or I think it's like the Wade Keller after show, I called in on Wednesday and chatted with those guys just as a caller, because I had this crazy idea. So if you want to kind of get out of this and you don't want one guy to necessarily lose clean, hear me out. The match is going on. We're about 28 minutes, 25, 26, 28 minutes into it. Maybe 28's a little too long. Maybe just go like 23, 24, 25 minutes into the match. Getting to the point where both guys are just draining sweat, probably bleeding. Mox has probably been bleeding for 22 minutes of the match at this point. And no offense, Mox, I love you, by the way. Read your book. I'm going to read it again. Listening to the audible of it. It's fucking brilliant. Love you, man. But all that being said, there's going to be a point in the match where, and that's why I kind of wish it was, I take that back, I'm not even going to say it. But there's going to be a point where the referee is going to get knocked out, right? Because of course there is. All of a sudden, we're going to get a surprise appearance, and I don't want to say return, but a surprise appearance from none other than MJF. Mox and Punk are going to be kind of dragging themselves back up to their feet, pulling themselves up off of the respective sides of the ring with the ropes. MJF is going to come in, probably have the Dynamite Diamond ring still, looking just as fresh and fly as ever, in a probably thousands worth of dollars suit on. And he's going to cold clock Moxley, man. He's going to knock the fuck out of Mox. Everyone in Chicago is going to lose their shit. They're going to erupt. They're going to be just cheering MJF, all of this shit. Punk isn't really going to know what happened, because this whole time Punk has been kind of facing his respective side, the turnbuckle. He obviously hears the fans. He turns around. He sees that Mox is knocked out completely. MJF is hiding on the opposite side of the ring, kind of kneeled down. The referee, of course, as always, is conveniently regaining consciousness on the other side of the ring. Being dragged over, Punk covers Mox, gets the 1, 2, 3, the victory. The crowd goes crazy. MJF stands up, kind of peers over, kind of gives this devilish fucking grin, and then just leaves. Just leaves out through the crowd. Everyone's patting him on the back, saying, "You're the fucking man, MJF, thank you, blah, blah, blah," all that shit. The fans go home happy. Mox doesn't cleanly lose. He has an excuse. MJF is back. We have a couple stories going into the next few weeks going forward, and an immediate one that we can set up on Dynamite. The way you start Dynamite, you have Punk come out, open the show, address the obvious, the elephant in the room. He can say he didn't know MJF was, first of all, going to even be in Chicago. Obviously, why would he, right? They hate each other. Look what they did in the dog collar match. Like, why would he know, type thing. Completely believable and understandable. You have Punk address that and say Mox is a hell of a champion, and if he wants a rematch, just say when, man, and we'll pencil it in, type thing, to give it the feeling that it's not going to happen anytime soon. But at least have him address it, kind of close that chapter and move on. And then Punk can say, but you know what, I do still have one chapter that I do still have open is Paige. And he can say, you know what, man, like I said X, Y, and Z the other week, but now is your opportunity to come out here, face me man to man. If you have something to say it to my face, all this bullshit. You address Punk, Paige, whatever show you have. I think they have Grand Slam coming up. You can set that as your big main event title match for that show and actually get a proper build and hype. I don't know the exact date of that show, but I hope we have at least like 2-3 weeks, because that would be perfect time frame. You don't need too much, but at least something. Have a nice closure for Paige and a nice kind of, I guess closures is the proper word, I mean, it sucks he's not going to win, but at least we close that chapter and he can move on and not just look completely foolish for not addressing it. And again, not him personally, just his, just the whole situation is just weird. But that kind of occupies Punk for the meantime. But in MJF land, Moxley's pissed. Moxley's pissed that he was screwed out of the championship. He just went through all this shit. He went through grueling matches. He carried the championship and the title on his back for months while MJF was just at home bullshitting in his mansion, not giving a fuck, not working, all this shit. Like, I can hear Moxley's promo now. MJF comes out, addresses the obvious. How the fuck is he here? He can nip it so quickly. He can say, yeah, talk to the big man in the back, talk to TK, whatever you want to call him. Just say big man, talk to the big man in the back. He realized the error of his ways. I got paid the big bucks, now I'm here, bitch. Some shit like that. However MJF is going to word it, his main thing was the money. He wants money and he wants the spotlight. Two things that he gets right off the bat. He's involved in the main event of All Out, directly and indirectly. He's getting a fucking fire feud with Moxley, who is damn near one of the hottest guys in the wrestling industry, period, regardless of the company. And Moxley, is going to get fire matches and promos out of MJF in the weeks building up to it. And I think that can be another match on the card for Grand Slam, if that's too soon, depending on when. Again, I don't know the exact date of Grand Slam, but if that's too soon, then you can build and milk that to the next pay-per-view, which I would love to see. I think maybe even kind of thinking about it, obviously Grand Slam is probably going to be way too soon, but you can, Full Gear being in November, you can milk that baby all the way to November, no problem. No problem. And have the culmination of MJF and Mox there. Because we haven't seen those two guys fight. And it'll be they have history as well. It'll be a nice throwback to when Mox was champion the first time in AEW. And that was the first title shot that MJF had. And I believe that was the first the first loss that MJF had. If I'm not mistaken, that he technically lost that match because Moxley had hit him with the he wasn't called, it's not the Dirty Deeds, what the hell was it? I'm blanking on his finishing move, the name of it, guys. But he was banned from using that move, and he hit it when the referee wasn't looking, and that's what cost him, or that's how MJF lost. So that right there is something that you can play off of, and another reason why MJF would be pissed and go after the Mox. So just so many reasons, and then all this can culminate, because again, why would MJF want to help Punk? Because he's not helping Punk. He wants to set up Punk. He wants Punk to have his journey, but he wants to be the one to screw Punk, and he wants to be the one to beat Punk for the title. He doesn't want to beat anyone else for the AEW championship but Punk. And I think the next time we have a show in Chicago, that's when MJF would take the championship from CM Punk. Because what is the most dangerous place to face CM Punk? Then it's in Chicago. He said that when he came back. So I think it kind of writes itself. And again, that's a completely crazy story that I had one spark of an idea and it just literally just transpired from there. So with all that being said, guys, this has been an extremely long show, but I thank you guys for listening. And again, officially my winner for the main event is CM Punk, although I would not be surprised if Jon Moxley won, but I would love to see Chicago Riot if they did, because Moxley does have a lot of love. So I don't know if they would be that heated, or even heated at all. But I don't know. I like chaos, guys. But again, that being said, guys, thank you guys so much for listening to the pod, and I hope you enjoy this fun next few days that we have of wrestling, guys. Starting tomorrow, we have Friday Night SmackDown, followed by Rampage. We have Clash at the Castle on Saturday, we have All Out on Sunday, and then we have Raw on Monday. So a fucking stacked next few days that we have, guys. Thank you for listening and downloading the show, and until next time, take care.